welcome. It's great to see you today. I want to welcome you here to our Harbor community here at High Desert Church. It's just a privilege to get to be here with you. I actually just got home from vacation this last week. Was up in the Pacific Northwest, Oregon, Washington, that area up there. I want you to know I've been in detox ever since I got home. And all of the green is now out of my system. I'm done. I've got a shade of brown now that covers everything, and I'm back in the desert. So I want you to know I'm fully reacclimated. It's all good. Actually, we love High Desert Church so much. We visited a church while we were up there on Father's Day. And I remember the first thing I asked my kids when we came out of the service, what'd you guys think? And they're like, man, really made us miss HDC. And so it really is our home in so many ways, and we're grateful for it. We're really glad you're here with us today. We actually embark in a brand new series. Having notes would be really helpful. So if you don't have some, you can raise your hand for a small fee. No, just kidding. We'd love to get those to you, though, so you can grab a copy and just be able to track with us a little bit better. We started a brand new series here in the summer, Famous Dead People Who Changed the World. And really what we're going to do, every series that we put together here at High Desert Church really has this one singular purpose. How does it better prepare you to change your world for Christ? That's really what we're all about. And this series is like the others. And what we're doing is we're looking at 8 characters, men and women, from the Old Testament. We'll look at one each week, and really drawing from their life the kinds of things that God walked them through that we can identify with, where they changed the world and will help us better change ours. And so as we start into this series, we're real excited that you're here with us on week 1. If you look at the back of your notes, here's kind of a different kind of cool thing we'll be adding throughout this series. Is normally it's not a new thing for us to have discussion questions on the back. We know a lot of your small groups have taken a break for the summer, but we wanted for this series to provide something for your family. So whether you're just an individual, whether you're a couple, you might have kids, this might be something, just maybe one a day to kind of walk through the week and talk about what you heard on the weekend about the message before. There's a really cool dynamic even at the bottom for younger children to really, as a parent, really be able to give them a great idea of what you heard here this weekend. So I really want to encourage you to use those as we dig in. We're going to dig in today actually in the first of this series to Job is going to be our first topic, our first person we're going to look at. The guys did a great job with the graphics, very fitting for his life. And when you think of Job, you usually think of really quickly the idea of perseverance. Some of you are very well acquainted with his story. Others of you are not. So much so when you looked at the program, you thought, Job, who's he? So we're going to get you acquainted with him today. And it's great no matter where you're at on the spectrum. We want to see it through a fresh lens and again, be able to be better equipped and prepared to change our worlds this week. So perseverance is that word that becomes somehow synonymous with Job. And as we look at that, it reminds me of a story. There was a kid one time who went out into his backyard, had his baseball cap on, his bat, had his ball, and exclaimed loudly for the neighborhood to hear, I am the greatest hitter in the world. Threw up the ball, took a swing. Strike one, he yelled out. Kind of got himself readjusted, picked up the ball, and even with greater vigor said, I am the greatest hitter in the world. Threw up the ball, strike 2. Then he realized, okay, this is getting serious. 3 strikes and you're out. I got to do something here. So got himself already, picked up the ball with even more gusto than before, throws it out. I am the greatest hitter in the world. Throws up the ball, strike 3, and quickly proclaims, I am the greatest pitcher in the world. And it seems like that's our tact in our culture today. We are not long with something that presents great difficulty. When the going gets tough, we find a new course. And so examples of perseverance are fewer and fewer and harder to find. Job is one of those who's a great example to us, and we'll look at his life today, and our goal would be to understand, God, how can we persevere when we go through suffering? In the New Testament, we'll find that Job is in the Old Testament. If you have a Bible today, we'll be there, by the way, in the book of Job. You can turn there. A New Testament Greek word, though, that's translated often to persevere is hypomeneo. And I wanted you to see its semantic range. It includes ideas like to remain or to stay behind, to stay under, to abide, to endure. The etymology, even for our English word persevere, comes from the Middle French, per, meaning very, severe, meaning strict. Very strict is what the word itself kind of means. And I wanted us to have kind of a working definition that we could use today. So in your notes, perseverance is defined as determined continuation with something. Determined continuation with something, not giving up. And that's the concept that we'll be kind of locking on to today and looking at together. See, in relation to persevering through suffering, that's kind of the specific type of perseverance we'll talk about today. In relation to persevering through suffering and through difficult seasons, let me be really clear by stating from the beginning, it's not a question of if you're going to suffer, it's simply when. Be very clear with you, and many of you are dialed into that. You knew that before I said it, because your life experience has already walked you through significant seasons of suffering. Some of you, and I would say most likely those of us who are younger, not categorically just because you're young, but younger maybe in terms of fewer life experiences would maybe even be thinking you can cheat this axiom. The reality is you won't. Suffering is going to come into your life. And some of you that are here today are right in the middle of it. There will be very little I will need to say to make some sort of application from Job's life to your experience because you're walking in deep waters today. Some of you have just come through a season of great suffering, and unbeknownst to you, others are going to enter one very soon. And the reality is we have to ask ourselves, so God, we live in a world where suffering is obvious, it is there. What do we do about it? How do we enter into it? How do even the people in our oikos, when they are suffering, how can we be a source of comfort and encouragement to them? It's a real world thing. Now, how do we respond correctly to it? And Job is going to give us some really great ideas to that today. So let's look at his life. Let's discover together what kind of suffering he went through, how he responded to it, and how God met him right in the middle of it. Let's begin by looking at who this man Job is. In your Bibles, Job chapter 1, verses 1 through 3 give us a little bit of a context for the man. We realize, by the way, that the book of Job comes about in the middle of your Old Testament, but realize the narrative, the story of Job historically takes place early in Genesis. And I'll explain that in a second. Look at the text. In the land of Uz, verses 1 through 3, there lived a man whose name was Job. This man was blameless and upright. He feared God and shunned evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters, and he owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 donkeys. And he had a large number of servants. He was the greatest man among all the people of the East. That last line is really a great phrase. He was the greatest man among all the people of the East. So what do we know about Job? We know he was wealthy. We know that he had a big family. We know that he was blessed. We know that he, interestingly enough, didn't even live in the land of Palestine or Israel. He instead lived actually very south of there in what is in present-day Saudi Arabia, is what most commentators believe the land of Uz existed. So Job was not even Jewish. Many of our Old Testament heroes we'll be looking at come from that unique family line. Job does not. Job was probably a contemporary of someone like Abraham during the patriarchal age. So we look at Job and we unpack a little bit about him. We get to know him. Really what you would say about Job is that the way you maybe kind of break it down, he's a guy who had it all. It's a great way of maybe even people in your life that you'd identify. This person seems to have it all. Job would have been identified as such until one day. We read in chapter 1, verse 6, that an interesting occasion happens. Satan comes into the throne room of God. And God says, Satan, what have you been up to? Satan says, I've been roaming around the earth. God says, well, when you've been there, have you noticed my servant Job? Job's an upright man. Job follows me wholeheartedly. And Satan says, well, of course he does, God. You've given him everything. You've blessed him to the gills. He has everything a human would want. Why wouldn't he live in a way that was obedient to you? But if you took his stuff, God, if you took away everything he had, he would turn and he would curse you to your face. God says, I'm going to show you that you're wrong. You can take everything he has away. Now, it's a powerful conversation. Interestingly enough, in the narrative of the book of Job, we never understand that Job ever hears anything about that conversation. He has no knowledge that such a thing has happened, but what he does know is this. He does know that soon thereafter, one day, a messenger comes to him and says, Job, all of your camels